Hey! All right, let me see if I can get this fucking angled right now. I set up my rocking chair out in the backyard so I can have a drink.
Perfect.
Awesome.
You got the best spot.
All right.
Well, welcome to Tool Talk, guys.
Can you bring it a little bit closer? Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. I know we meant to do it a long time ago and we never got it organized, I think.
Well, it seems like this is the perfect time since you guys are taking off and going doing your thing. So you can talk about that. Absolutely.
For sure.
So, audience, we were just talking to Cash and Tyler and Justin here from Five and Dime Poets. We were just talking to them about they're going to do a little retreat getaway writing session. So, heading up, is going north?
Escanaba area. Yep.
Oh, nice. Beautiful.
Okay. Give us a little lowdown on what's going on with that.
Cash, do you want to tell them or I can
go for it, J-Rock.
It's actually a friend of Cash's named Wendy Pepin that she lives in the UP and she owns several different properties. And this particular property is a church that's been abandoned for many years, but it was left exactly the way it was when they shut it down. And it's actually in Wilson, Michigan.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, like your beautiful, quaint little country church, red velvet, like carpeting, old wooden pews. And we're going to camp out there with the bus. I guess we're going to sleep in the church, probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
I plan on it.
Yeah. Set up our instruments and we'll have the capability to do a total recording session, do some live recordings.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a retreat and a get together and just open our minds up and be in a space where
see what happens. Yeah.
Safe, and just record whatever comes up,
Sounds amazing, actually, and kind of reminds me. I don't know, for some reason, The Outsiders popped in my head when you were talking about it.
Yeah. It's got a mix between The Outsiders and when the Chili Peppers recorded Blood Sugar Sex Magic. They rented a mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Yeah. They all lived there for like 3 months while they wrote and recorded the album. And it's something I always wanted to do since I was a kid and saw that video.
Awesome.
And I like how there's no agenda. I mean, we're just going there and see what happens,
That's amazing.
Might get
you just that right touch, man, and something blows up,
maybe something supernatural.
We got the Ouija board.
Right.
So, Cash, we know that you've been in the scene for a while. And Justin and Tyler, I've worked personally with on my single and with the Suicidal Fish with Tyler here. So why don't you give us like a little brief history of everything? Maybe whoever wants to give of how the band came together, what you guys did, prior.
Right on. Shit. Man. I started my first band at 15 and when in my 20s I had a band called Cash O'Reilly and the Downright Daddies. And for years and years I traveled, toured, and recorded with those guys I always had a different lineup. Me and my oldest daughter sat down one night and we counted like over around 125 different players that I'd had in the band over the years.
Wow. And
one night I had a show in Chicago, in Labard at the old Brower House. And it was in January during a snowstorm. The rhythm section I had at that time were actually brothers. They were riding together. I was driving separately. They sent me a text saying that they weren't going to make it because of the storm. And I was already more than halfway there. So I decided just to go ahead and fuck it and just do the show. I got to do the show. The band was supposed to headline. There's 2 opening acts. So I get there, and I just go immediately to the opening band's drummer when I saw him loading his gear, and I'm like, "Hey, can I borrow your hi-hat and your bass drum tonight?" And he told me, yeah. And I decided I'm not going to explain anything to anybody. I'm not going to say anything to anybody. I'm just going to go on stage like this is what I do. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to make any apologies. I'm just going to go for it. So I got up there and went for it, and man, the crowd loved it. All I had was an acoustic. Well, I had my electric, but I played my acoustic that night. I didn't know how well electric would go over at the time as a one man little thing like that. So I kept it pretty simple: bass drum, hi hat, acoustic guitar, and did my show, did my songs, and the place lit up. Loved it, and they paid me as a full band. Booked another show.
Wow.
So I took off and decided to be a one man band from there on out, and traveled the country for like almost 8-9 years as a one man band, and eventually added harmonica, built my own oil can guitar, added a snare drum to my setup to make it more of a Friday and Saturday night type of thing instead of like a guy in a coffee shop corner, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So toured the country forever doing that and had a lot of success, man. Opened up for a lot of big names, got a lot of big opportunities, but it seemed like everywhere I went, like there was still some kind of hole there. No matter what opportunity I got, there was still like this emptiness.
Mhm.
And I was playing in Laughlin, Nevada at a festival out there, and the band who was coming on after me was loading their gear in. And off the side of the stage while I'm playing, I can see them all just kind of messing around, fucking around with each other, doing jokes and laughing. I'm like, that's what's missing, like that's that camaraderie, is just for like 8 years, it's me and my dog on the road, going from city to city, which is awesome. But at the same time, it can get lonely, and so when the pandemic happened, I got shut down on a tour that I was doing from coast to coast. I had a tour booked from New York to LA, and got shut down in Kansas City the night the pandemic and the country shut down. So I came home and just I don't know, just something inside me was like, kind of, this is the universe telling me to try something different, like
Right.
maybe see who's out there, who's playing. And I saw Justin on an ad on a musicians looking for musicians site, and kind of went back and forth for a minute. And then when we finally did get together and jam, like it was amazing, man. Like this fucking guy shows up and I start calling out songs, and he knows them. Like he's not just trying to play along and keep up. Like he knows them. Like he did homework.
Cash O'Reilly.
Yeah, originals,
Awesome.
And any original that I'd shout out, like he would hit it, the breaks, the tempo, everything. And I'm just like, holy shit, So then it got to the point of the rehearsal or tryout, whatever you want to call it, that I'm like, all right, well, I'm like, since he knows everything I'm calling out, like I told him, like, why don't you call something out? And here you go, starts calling out originals that he liked. And I was like, I've never had anybody in the history of any band anywhere show up and know everything so tight,
Awesome.
And it just started going from there.
Amazing. I mean, yeah, like I said, I worked on my single with him, and he's an amazing percussionist. It's
Yeah.
I've seen you guys live a couple times, and it's just amazing.
And that's, I love that you call him a percussionist, because that's what I call him.
Mhm.
That dude is not a drummer by any means, like he's just, man, he's got that style, like John Densmore kind of stuff,
Right.
Thank you, Cash.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
You've earned the gold star, bud.
Right. Anybody you jam with, you make their jobs a lot easier, and you make the sound a lot better.
Absolutely. So Justin, what about you?
I was always I grew up kind of on the academic side of music. Like I grew up in Detroit, and we actually had bands started in 4th grade. So in grade, I started playing the drums, and you learn your rudiments. And then in middle school, I was in concert band. In high school, I was in symphonic band and jazz band and marching band. I love marching band in the camaraderie that you have with the drummers in a marching band, And then I did like a few garage bands here and there, and nothing really worked out. And I think I told the guys in the band, I kind of just gravitated towards church bands. So I played in church band for many, many years, just doing the church thing, and got kind of tired and burned out from that. And then it took a year or two off. And then that's when I actually saw Cash's ad, and I replied to it. And Cash said, well, send me like a demo or something. So I sent him a demo. And
Video.
first of all, amazed because after I saw that Cash had placed this ad, I did some research on him and I looked him up and I found him on Spotify and all over YouTube. And I was flattered and amazed that he contacted me like within 24 hours of me submitting my stuff to him. And that made me feel good that, he respected me. And like Cash said, we got together and we're like oil and water, but we like opposites, but like opposites attract sometimes too, and it's always just we respect each other. And even though we're very different, like we love each other and respect each other in what we do musically, it just works.
Amen.
Yeah.
Tyler, my friend.
What's up?
Hey, how are you?
You're so quiet.
T-Bone.
So tell us.
I know. I was like, where is Tyler here?
I am here. Have no fear. So a little bit about myself. I'm 5'11", about 180 pounds. I like
Not a singles ad.
short walks across the beach.
Holding hands and long walks on the beach.
No, I grew up in a musical family. My dad's a drummer, so I started off playing drums as a kid, and then kind of dabbled on guitar and bass and vocals. And my first time ever really being in a band was like, again, kind of like Justin was in a church band. Mine was with some members of my congregation I was in. One of them being my dad was our drummer, singer, and I got trained how to play bass. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a sad situation because I was a 3-piece group, and the bass player I was 19 at the time. The bass player was 26 when he died. He had cancer, and was a brilliant bass player, like just real good studio level musician, played on different albums and stuff. But I came in and it was just like a cover band of your typical, Eddie Money, Bryan Adams, Journey type, covers. And I got taught like five of those songs with my first lesson. And then 3 months later, we did like a 2 or 3 hour gig for my grandparents' 50th anniversary party. But that's what got me like really to be a musician, was that training that I got from the guitar player in that band. That kind of set me on the journey a little more and gave me more understanding of music and stuff. And the foundation that was built in me then made it so that, I could kind of gravitate towards anyone really, because I learned all these different styles and stuff. But, long story short, I just about 3 years ago, I believe it was, you reached out to me. Mm-hmm. I was in Midland, and you had a band you guys were putting together, and of course that became Suicidal Fish.
Correct.
And we did some pretty cool stuff with Suicidal Fish. We did a couple crossover shows with Five and Dime Poets at the time, which I wasn't in the band at that. But then throughout the crossover and stuff like that, let's see, what was it? Just a year ago, wasn't it? Just a little over a year ago. They asked if I would fill in for them at a show at the Blind Pig. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah. They gave me a couple weeks, and it
wasn't too long. It was like 10 days.
It wasn't long at all. I was going to say, I don't even think it was 2 weeks.
It probably wasn't, honestly. Yeah. So I think it was probably like maybe a Friday or something, and then the gig was like the following Saturday or something like that.
Yeah, it was closer to like just a week.
Yeah. But yeah, we did a run through, a couple run throughs of the set list, and I guess it went well because after we played the show,
You stuck like glue.
Yeah. Personally, musically, everything just really clicked like from the get go, with all three of us.
You guys
Yeah.
from one point to another, just everything just clicked.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
we've been getting a lot of good opportunities, and
So speaking of opportunity, and this is something that I've been kind of trending with about how musicians in our current, industry and with technology and everything, kind of how you guys are navigating that.
we're terrible at the technology. At least I am, and it's so hard to know exactly what to do to get people to pay attention to your social media.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You never. It's like if you're thinking about making something that you hope someone will notice and maybe go viral, then you've already lost.
Right.
Because you're losing your integrity as an artist because you're already thinking about like the outcome of it, instead of just putting something out there. So, and I think that happens to a lot of us these days. And, again, I'm a dinosaur and I don't know much about the technology. So I think where we're at is like, just hit the live shows, write and play material the best we can, and hit the live shows and just try to create a fan base and let those people be online,
Right. Kind of spread the word for you, right?
it feels good. Like the other day to get your picture featured.
Yeah.
Michigan band Facebook pages. All of a sudden you're tagged in it. You didn't do it,
Right.
And you're like, oh, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, that was really cool. I actually felt really honored that they put our picture as a header in the Michigan Live Music group, man. I was like, fuck yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great when, even if you have 5, sometimes it's all it takes is like 5 loyal.
Yeah.
And they kind of, they bring their friends and
right.
This is what we're doing tonight, and then they post it on Facebook and whatever, and then people start talking, and it just
word of mouth goes a long way.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, like a lot of people in today's world don't understand. Like, they get on the internet or turn on the radio and they hear Metallica everywhere. When Metallica was making their way, it wasn't like that. Back in the 80s, like 85, 86, when Master Puppets came out, that shit wasn't getting played on the radio. They didn't have videos on fucking MTV. They went out and fucking played as hard as they could and gained word of mouth. They gained fans. They gained a fan base.
Mm-hmm.
That's what got bands like that. Because everyone looks back at the 80s like this heyday of hair metal. It wasn't until the late 80s when everyone starts selling out and doing the same formula that those bands were getting airplay.
Right.
They had to build a word of mouth, and especially in the punk rock scene before that, and it's really strange to me when people like kind of misremember that era, and how hard it is to actually get out there and hit your nose to the grind and do a show when everyone thinks, like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like it's so. Like it sounds good, but it's different. I don't know it. I don't know the words. I can't sing along to it. So,
there's a lot of that.
There is a lot of that.
It's a fickle fucking business.
I do feel like the 60s, 70s, 80s, all had some stuff in common, and now we're leaning and we're trending into this whole YouTube era, Facebook era where. Literally, you look at what's his name, Justin Bieber. You look at somebody that, they're 12 years old and they're just sitting there with their guitar, doing their thing, like what you're doing, But somebody just catches it and goes, bloop, same thing with like a Taylor Swift. They're online, just on these little videos. I've got a friend of mine's son. Is on there and on YouTube, and he's almost got a whole album now. That he's just doing one at a time, and every once in a while I catch somebody in my circle caught on to him, and it's coming across my feed, but it's just so different. The difference between the 80s and how
Oh yeah.
these bands got together, how they met, how they write, to now. It's definitely
Well,
Right.
it's a double-edged sword though at the same time, because with the technology, there's so much traffic, there's so much people pushing so much stuff
Yeah.
all the time, and that's like I'll post videos of songs or whatever, and and I'm organically, like for instance, the video that I put out got 2.5 K hits, right? But you see just something randomly really dumb and stupid that gets over a million hits. It's like you got
Yep.
somebody who's putting all this time and effort and working so hard into
Right.
something, and something they're putting out there, and it's just like
Garbage.
swipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's sometimes
Yeah.
there's no rhyme or reason to it, which I like your attitude about it. If you just do what you do and
Yeah.
it's all organic, you don't really, there's not that
Yeah.
pressure to try to, gain some crazy momentum with the social media world. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
like,
And so many
your-
people get caught up in that shit these days.
Yeah, like his video, I find it really funny. So I watch his video on my YouTube. His video will come up and it'll either be under folk, or it'll be under Christian, or it'll be under rock. And
Right.
it's so funny that it's different every single time. I'm like going,
Yeah.
I have a mix in my YouTube of folk. Really? Because I don't really listen to like what's in here out of pure curiosity, but he's front and center on it. I just find it really funny.
Yeah. Ours somehow came up. Our EP somehow came up. I googled it and it came up as like one description was like a Russian disco hip hop genre. I'm like, what? I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was Russian and it was kind of like electronica. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did you get that from our stuff? Our
Right.
6 songs that we put out. There's no electronic shit. There's not one electronic instrument on the damn thing. How did that happen? And it's not in Russian.
It's Tyler. He looks Russian.
My solo
Maybe
stuff
the
always
title, Conspiracy.
my solo stuff always gets linked with Japanese rock. It's so
Really?
weird, but it's kind of an
Instagram thinks I'm a girl.
My Facebook
They're always
avatar
sending me these.
girl.
I always get these like relationship advice things from the girl's point of view. I'm like, what the hell? Instagram thinks I'm a chick, man.
So as far as your music goes, though, what would you say kind of influenced your way?
Man, I grew up on so much different stuff. Like my first and foremost love of music was Elvis. My mom loved Elvis. My dad tolerated him, but something about that guy, the way he performed and sounded, just like struck me from like a really young age. And then as I grew up, I was really into the hip hop thing, like in 4th, 5th grade when it started coming out of the Bronx and moving across the country. Again, I know I'm aging myself here, but I was there when Grandmaster Flash first hit. We're all breakdancing on cardboard at school and shit, and then I remember camping in my backyard and hearing Smoke in the Boys Room on the radio. And that just changed everything for me. Those loud guitars that sound so nasty and rebellious. I started listening to Motley Crue and heavy metal shit like that. And then once I think like the heavy metal of that era was like for like boys in middle school,
Right.
with not a lot of like depth and thought pattern. Like the music's great, but a lot of the lyrics are shit and the subject matter is misogynist and fucking terrible.
Right.
So were the videos.
But then, yeah, exactly. So then when you kind of start getting your high school years, when you kind of start reading and thinking a little bit more and taking like more like challenging classes and, creative writing, poetry, start getting into that, you kind of, your thoughts really start to kick in.
Right.
So I start listening to more like kind of alternative music, you know, stuff with more like Violent Femmes, Cure, love my punk rock, Misfits, you know, and went through, I guess, not really a phase, but that through that journey, you know, and then in my early 20s, I was so fucking bored with what was going on with music, and every band, every musician that I knew at the time wanted to be Limp Bizkit, and I just couldn't understand it. I fucking hate Limp Bizkit. I think they're the worst thing that ever happened to music. Everybody at the time wanted to be that band, so I quit music for like 2 years and went to broadcasting school, and had an old truck that had an AM radio in it. So I started listening to old, like 50s rock and roll that my mom and dad listened to, and old country that my dad would listen to, and my family all comes from Kentucky, so I knew all about, you know, Bill Monroe, bluegrass, you know, honky tonk with like Ernest Tubb and Hank Williams, and I was kind of in a weird way stuck listening to it because that's the only stations I was getting on my truck at the time.
Right.
And it just, the more I listened to it, especially Hank Sr., I'm just like sitting there like, this is the fucking most punk rock shit I've ever heard in my life, you know, like just
It was
written right from the
definitely
soul, like
unique for
three
his
chords
era.
and the truth, you know? Yeah, you know, and when he was around at that time, he was not accepted by his peers.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they said, you know, he holds his notes too long and he yodels. It doesn't make any sense. You know, he just chomps at his guitar, blah, 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 you know,
Mm-hmm.
but he did something different and innovative. And that's what I think that's, if you're not doing something different in music or trying to and inspiring to, not necessarily going out of your way to, but inspiring to,
Right.
then again, like, what's the point? You know, like tribute bands. Fuck, man. I can't stand those fucking things. They're the worst, again, worst thing in the fucking world. Like, I would rather fail with 5 likes or whatever however you want to like scale success these days. I would rather fucking fail writing something from the heart that I know that I really am proud of than going out there and fucking being like fucking Jim Morrison every night in a great tribute band. You
Right.
know, I could sing the fuck out of the Doors. I could go out there and make a hell of a career, but fuck that. You
Right.
know, there's no fucking way in hell. And this world today is just jam packed with short videos of people shredding solos in tribute bands.
Right.
Yeah.
And then everybody puts that up on this big pedestal, and it just makes no sense to me.
And there goes that traffic.
Sorry, I'm out. I got my soapbox out, my whiskey.
So where?
My whiskey my whiskey brings out my soapbox.
What about some influences for you there, Justin?
So
You
let's
know-
pour some more.
Say what, Cash?
I said my whiskey brings out my soapbox, so let's pour some more, right?
It's okay.
You know, we joke, our band jokes about it a lot, how we all have like a different musical background. Like Cash is, you know, like Elvis and Johnny Cash and honky tonk. Then we have Tyler that's pretty much like rock or heavy rock. Would you agree, Tyler? Background.
Yeah. Hair metal. Yeah.
And then Cash calls me the new waver because that's what I always got into, like in high school and college, was what back then, you know, you called it alternative or emo. I love The Cure, REM, The Smiths, New Order, that kind of music that had like emotion to it. You could, at least for me, I would listen to it and I would feel something, or I would identify with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the Cure songs, you know, I just love that music, and I emulated it too. Like I dressed like Robert Smith, and I had my hair, the long bangs covering my face, and I felt it though, and I liked it, felt it, you know.
How'd your mom feel?
My mom was so positive and like reinforcing with anything I ever did musically. She was always right there, like, if that's what you want to do, yeah, play that music or do this or follow this. If you want to play the drums, I think I told the band before, like when I was a kid and I started playing drums in elementary school, I heard that there was a lot of other kids in my 5th grade or 4th grade class, whatever it was, that their parents said, "Oh no, you can't get drums. Oh no, you're not going to be banging on those, making noise." But my mom, like, yeah, get those drums. I don't care. Play them as loud as you want.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
She was always so
Hell yeah.
supportive with anything I did musically. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's why, she passed away a couple years ago.
On a side note,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say on a side note, that's where our bus comes from, and our bus is named after Justin's mama, Barbara Ann.
Awesome.
Ah,
Yeah.
love that.
We got a little plaque on the upper front of the bus. It says Barbara Ann, that a legit pinstriping artist made for us at Simcoe last year.
Nice.
So she was always
While we waited on the bus, hug over.
I've seen some pictures.
I even came home like one weekend. I got my ear pierced and came home, and I was kind of like hiding it. Didn't want my mom to see it, and finally I was like, Mom, I got something to tell you." And she's like, "Oh, that's nice." Right? Like, my mom's gonna be mad and judge me, but she was just like, "Yep, do your own thing." Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's amazing.
Good question, though. Thank you for asking.
Tyler?
Yeah, a lot of 80s hair metal. I was born in 1985, and I believe that's the year that science proved that rock and roll obtained perfection. Y&T,
85.
my favorite band in the world, even though they're not like 80s. They started in 74. But yeah, I love that type of stuff. All the I'm Van Hagar, but I love Van Halen. Anything from Sammy Hagar is awesome. Dokken, Scorpions, all those 80s hair bands.
Man, you would have loved my first concert, Tyler. My first concert was Monsters of Rock at Tampa Stadium in '88.
Nice.
It was fucking Kingdom Come, Metallica, Scorpions, Dokken, and Van Halen.
Oh, dang.
Van Hagar. Yeah.
Great
Me and my brother left after Metallica, but you would have loved that shit.
That reminds me of a question that I think I've thought about it a couple times and it just has never fit in. But like thinking about Van Halen, what would have been a band, and maybe you don't have one, but that you wish you would have saw had you had maybe you missed an opportunity, you didn't take it, and now it's too late. That somebody in the band has passed on or whatever. Like, do you have one? Because I've got a couple. I'm kind of bummed about.
I definitely got one. Nirvana, Blind Pig, 1990.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. I lived in Jackson, half an hour away. My friends were going, and I didn't go. I said, I'll see him next time around. And then they blew up, and then I never got a chance to see him again. Yep.
I didn't find myself in music really. I mean, of course, I liked Metallica and Guns N' Roses, but I was never really into the hair metal. I didn't really find myself in music until the 90s hit and the grunge era came through.
That was the best, man.
And that's when what you were talking about earlier about lyrics, and that's when lyrics started becoming a little bit more meaningful, and there was a little bit more poetry there,
Yeah.
a little bit deeper and darker, and that's where I kind of resonated.
See, and I was young. Like, I remember,
Hell yeah.
like,
Dirt.
preschool or something, like Juice Newton. I think I was 6, and I remember being in the car on my way to Grandma's funeral and hearing Juice Newton, and that was it. And I was always everything under the sun. I sat by the radio all day, like that was all I did. My dad was pissed.
Yep.
I heard you say Dirt, and it kind of caught my ear as an Alice in Chains.
Yeah,
Yes.
that album, dude. Oh my God. That
Yes.
album got me through so much in that young age, man, when it came out.
Yeah.
Just that whole era. that's when I was just getting, I think it was like my junior year and senior year of high school is when it kind of started really kicking in. We were listening to like Fugazi, Jane's Addiction, Minor
Yeah.
Threat, Agent Orange, and shit like that before everything started kind of like getting mainstream. But when it hit like mainstream, it still didn't matter because they were still, that was one genre that still just kind of stayed true to what it was doing,
Right.
and it imploded because they were doing what they still kept doing what they were doing. They refused to be celebrities and rock stars,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's just the honesty of it is what really attracted me to listen to it. Man, Mudhoney, God, those bands are just so fucking great.
We could only go back to Boston, 1991, 92, whatever.
Hell yeah.
Right.
Right?
Like, so, I mean,
Oh man.
you had Soundgarden, you had freaking Stone Temple Pilots, and you had
Yeah.
Nirvana, and then Pearl Jam, and then they would get together for Hunger or for Temple of the Dog, and yeah, those were all
Yeah.
man.
It's a great era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a fucking great era. And what always got me about the era, what I think is so fucking awesome about the era is, and it kind of goes back to where I came from in Jackson, Michigan, cutting my teeth musically, like starting my first band down there at 15. I think that was somewhere, early 90s. And the scene back then, no matter what town you're in the era, no matter what city, everybody was striving to be different and original. They wanted their own identity,
Right.
and that's what made that scene like really skyrocket in the early days. By the mid 90s, you start getting, bands like fucking Puddle of Mud and Creed, shit like that, like just rip-offs and blah, blah, blah. But in those early days, you had bands like Sublime, Nirvana, Soundgarden, shit like that Chili Peppers. They're all part of that umbrella of alternative, but none of them sounded the same. Primus, no one wanted to sound the same. Like, it was important to not sound like anybody else.
See, because I was born in 85, so I'm 10 in 95, and I'm a hair metal kid. So I'm not with grunge, fuck you, Nirvana. It wasn't until
this is why we get along so well.
Right? So it wasn't like till later on in life, as an adult, listening back to these old bands, when you really realize, like, just like Alice in Chains is so, maybe because of just the way I grew up, but like so grossly underrated. Like they're just masterful, and you watch them live, like that live acoustic was just in Nirvana too. Watching that live acoustic,
those unplugged sessions were awesome.
Oh, amazing!
Thank you,
Yeah,
MTV,
amazing.
for that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
just fantastic. And then it was funny, like, because we talked about how different our styles are, but it's like to learn the bass, I had to learn all that old country stuff because I was taught to play by an old country guitar player, and you get a real what's the word, appreciation for like those old players when somebody's just yelling out at you. It's in G. Remember, I taught you your scale stuff. Just play. Okay, this is fast,
Right.
But like, you learn all that stuff. You learn the old country and all the basic stuff for that, and you get an appreciation for. Yeah, a lot of it was more simplified, but because it was so simple, it gave room to put in more beautiful pieces into this work, and like how all the instruments work together in these different styles. So it began to widen my appreciation musically, and like, yeah, we're a rock and roll band, but don't think we won't listen to Duran Duran going down the road.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Hell yeah. We jam that shit.
I mean, we go all over the place. Willie Nelson, Duran Duran.
Yeah. That's what I always when
love
people ask when people ask me what we sound like, what kind of band we are, everyone always expects a genre, a name, like a label on it.
Right.
And we've never really had like be able to come up with a moniker or whatever you want to call it, a title. But I always tell people it's somewhere between Alice in Chains and Willie Nelson.
Well, everybody's, you know, I mean, that's the thing about music too. And we had this discussion on another interview about the fact that, you know, labeling the band and where they fall into category. I mean, everybody has their own interpretation of what they think your music is, or, you know, like I said, I said like this last one's kind of sounding like in this moment kind of Flyleaf type of Amy Lee Evanescence kind of sound, but they had their own different. They're like, yeah, you know, we hear that, but that's not, you know. So like I said, everybody listens and kind of makes their own interpretation.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing of art. It's subjective, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's again going back to lyrics. I think that's where today's music really falls short, and like no one can really relate and grab onto it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the lyrics today are just fucking terrible. You know, no one's writing from the heart anymore. It's just about writing the next hit for a money grab. You know,
not to mention you got all these laptop artists these days that, you know, they spend a couple months on a laptop doing some beats and some, you know, some repetitive chord progression. And they're just pumping out songs like this guy, Tom McDonald. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's very political in his music. And it seems like every other week he's dropping a new freaking song. I'm like, this is insane. How is this happening? You know, and here I am. It's been I dropped Pour It Out in March, and I'm not even nowhere near finished with a new song yet.
You know, but a lot of these guys that are doing this, like there's a guy keeps popping up on my Instagram and YouTube now. I can't think of his name. I think it might be Jesse something. He's just this guy who looks kind of like a young Mick Jagger in a like Canadian tuxedo. He's always in the woods with an acoustic.
Yeah.
And he doesn't sound like Bob Dylan, but he's got that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, like every day he's got a new song coming out. And like he's got like 57,000 fucking views on it, you know. And it came out of nowhere. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? But I think there's gatekeepers in this business, and there's fucking industry plants. And these people are definitely like that guy with that South of Richmond song. That dude didn't just fucking write. That guy just didn't write that and record in his backyard. He's a fucking industry plant. You know what I'm saying? Like Jewel was back in the day in the 90s. When Jewel came out, we were led to believe that she was homeless and living in her car. She went to fucking like the biggest fucking musical school in the goddamn world, you know? And fucking, we were all led to believe that Weezer was just 4 dorky kids from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Nope. They are all LA musicians. One of them was from fucking Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
But they came up with this whole fucking marketing idea. Like, let's all just be dorky from, let's pick a city that's not LA, not Seattle, not New York. And that'll make us more alternative, you know? So
that's the same thing with a lot of these. I was telling her because she watches The Voice and stuff like that. And then, you know, American Idol and everything. And I'm like, well, from everything I gathered, most of these people aren't these people just off the street that you see in these big ass lines. Most of them are hand plucked off of like YouTube singers and stuff like that. They're not just somebody getting random.
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
No, nothing in like television, movies, you know, anything that's like a business like that, like a corporation or whatever you want to call it. They're not off the hip. They want to make sure they've got great entertainment for their show.
Right.
You know, they have to know that they've got something that's going to get viewers in there. But, you know, they put a spin on it to make it, you know, look more organic. Like, oh, we just discovered this, you know, that lady who played piano, whatever, that kind of weird lady that was discovered on YouTube.
Yeah.
She was even an industry plant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all over the goddamn place, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, they always say that, you know, you got to be in the right place at the right time, blah, blah. I grew up believing that shit, you know, but you just have to know somebody. You know, like looking back at all the bands that I loved growing up, you know, LA Guns, Motley Crue, Faster Pussycat, Misfits, fucking Ramones, Guns N' Roses. They all had somebody already in the industry that got them their kind of tryouts or starts.
Right.
You know, it very rarely do bands like get to the level that we all want to be at organically.
Right.
You know, by going out and busting the pavement and playing shows. Everything is done. Everything is paid for, but made to look like it's happening organically. So
Yeah.
that way it appeals more to your home down sensibility,
Mhm.
you know,
It's calculated.
but
I
it's
mean,
calculated.
there's a percentage, obviously. I know, you know,
Yeah.
going back to the music shows, you know, the American Idols and Voice. There's a percentage of people that, you know, come in. I'm not saying that there's not,
Yeah.
but most of
like,
them are planted.
Yeah, because I mean, you had like with American Idol. I mean, you did have legit just people lining up, you know, whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then because they had that portion of the show where it was the bloopers, the bad ones, you know, and it was
Oh, yeah.
comedy and whatever. Obviously, they all had to sign a waiver, and some of them did it on purpose because they couldn't sing, but they wanted
To be on TV.
their
Yeah.
2 minutes.
They
of
want to be
fame.
on TV.
Right.
Right.
They got their 2 minutes of fame, but you did gather some out of there. Like I think like a Kelly Clarkson was, you know, kind of tossed in on that by her coworkers, you know, as a bartender and whatever. But I mean, yes, you do have,
Yep.
there is definitely a percentage of people, and it's unfortunate, but I think, you know, I think it keeps some sort of innocence for the generation now, I guess. You know, I get a little bit worried with schools wanting to take music out, and it's already happening.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you run out
I
of
mean-
that. It's such a great outlet.
Right. Even if nobody really wants to grow up and be a musician or whatever, just to know how to play an instrument
Right.
is such a psychological and mental
Yeah.
outlet. And a lot of things will lead you into something else.
Yeah.
You know, like I probably wouldn't have got it into like alternative or punk rock as soon as I did out of junior high, had not like Guns N' Roses been wearing Misfit shirts or Ramones shirts. You know,
Oh, yeah.
like everything kind of gets passed around and you see these things and no matter like how poppy something and corporate creative something might be, it still has a chance to lead you down the rabbit hole of where that came
Right.
from, you know. And if you ever watch the movie School of Rock, when he's putting the kids through music history
Mhm.
and he's got it all written on the blackboard behind him. When I first watched the movie, I realized that there's a bunch of names on there. So I paused it the second time I watched it and started zooming in on my DVD player screen. And that family tree of music on that blackboard is pretty fucking amazing if you look at it. It goes like from the time that movie was out. And I think it mentions like those early 2000 bands like the Strokes, White Stripes, and a few of those bands. But then when it starts branching down to where they all came from, the roots from it, like it mentions like the Buzzcocks, Muddy Waters, Hank Williams. Like it's pretty accurate and pretty amazing to watch the family tree of that
Right.
musical, you know. And if any kid in the world watched that movie that's young at that time, again, you know, and that movie even kind of picks on a little bit, like the kids don't even know who Led Zeppelin is or, you know, who this is and blah, blah, blah. But kids that listen to that stuff at that time, watch that movie, might go look those bands up,
Right.
you know.
Well, yeah,
At
because
the
there's
same time, that movie,
Oh.
like,
there's a lot of popular shows and stuff and movies, like, you know, that are kind of bringing some of the stuff back, you know, like what Stranger Things did for Master of Puppets and that Running Up the Hill song, you know, and it's nice that happens every now and then because that reintroduces a generation to music they weren't listening to before.
absolutely. You know, it's funny to me. I have a 16-year-old. My youngest daughter is 16 years old. She wears a Nirvana T-shirt. And she pretty much looks like me in high school. It cracks me up. She's got her Chuck Taylors on, ripped jeans, Nirvana T-shirt, long hair, staring at the ground. I'm like, holy shit, you know. But it's funny to me, and I did the same thing when I was her age to my mom. You know, so I'd be listening to something. My mom was like, how you listen to that? Why you listen to that? And I'm thinking in my head, you're not cool enough to know this. You know, you don't know this. You know, like, this is brand new stuff. You know, so when Penny and I talk about bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden, Mudhoney, and stuff like that, she in her head, I'd never heard this before.
Mhm.
You know, and it's kind of really funny. You know, she's explaining to me who Nirvana is. You know, and asks me, "Have you ever heard Nirvana? You know this song?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
Territorial Pissings is my favorite Nirvana song. If I have to really,
Oh,
that
hell yeah!
that gives me a lot.
Which one?
Territorial Pissings. It's on the Nevermind album.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hell yeah! I think I love Sliver.
yeah, it's a good tune.
I think that might be the one. Drowning me, or so whatever it is. I can't think what it
I
is.
think I like that Penny Royalty. Penny Royalty. It's called.
Oh,
That's a good-
hell yeah.
that's a good song.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, Penny Royal is their song.
Okay.
I love the line, "Give me a Leonard Cohen afterwards so I can sigh eternally." I fucking love that line. That's another great Leonard Cohen, man. Holy shit.
We just want to thank you for coming on here and talking with us. It was awesome. Before we do go, why don't you just give us a little rundown of where you're going to be next?
J-Rock, you got it?
Let's see. So we're
Is
gonna
it
Wake up.
we're gonna
West
Sorry.
what's that?
So time to wake up now.
Hello.
Wait, where are we going? Cadillac?
Wait,
Tyler's
It was
already
my-
in the car.
it was my understanding there would be no calendar questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
It was just
Well, I
my
know this
understanding.
Saturday.
Yeah,
This
we're gonna-
Saturday.
we're gonna join Cash. Yep.
Yeah, this Saturday I originally had a solo show booked at Higgins Lake at
Okay.
the Silver Dollar Saloon, but
Yep.
we're also leaving that day to go to the church to record. So the guys are going to play with me at Silver Dollar and Higgins Lake on Saturday night, and then we head to the church. We'll get there Sunday. We're going to lock ourselves in there and write and record, see what happens all week. And then Friday of next week will be. Wendy just sent me the link to it. It's at the band shell right on Lake Michigan in Escanaba.
Yeah, there's an
Okay.
Escanaba band shell. Right.
It's beautiful out there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then
the-
Saturday we'll be at the Cherry Festival.
Awesome. Cool.
I was going to say Sunday we might be in Northport, north of Traverse City. Depends on if I can make the phone call. If I remember to make the phone call or not.
Okay. All right. So again, Cash O'Reilly,
Which, now that I
Justin
said it out loud,
Gerard,
I might.
and Tyler Clayton, we really appreciate you taking this time with us, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thanks,
your
Jennifer.
time. And
Yeah.
Thanks.
always
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
and always remember, you guys, to keep the music playing.
Yeah,
Here.
we do. We got it.
Cheers. Absolutely.
See you
Hell yeah.
guys. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh
you.
yeah. There you go.